Yes, if you warm the ocean and the atmosphere anomalously, you will get bigger, greater storm events, including snowstorms.
How about 3 dimensions? Because, of course, when we're talking about the Earth's temperature, what temperature at what height are you talking about? We have the troposphere, the stratosphere, the mesosphere, the thermosphere. And temperatures are different at all levels of the atmosphere, going down, of course, as you go up through the troposphere, going back up in the mesosphere, dropping down as you approach the thermosphere, and then in the thermosphere, it's rockets back up. In fact, in the thermosphere itself, you have the absorption of solar radiation directly into gases in the thermosphere that make it the gases themselves at 2,000 degrees Celsius. But if you had a thermometer in the thermosphere, it would register below 0 because there wouldn't be enough actual transference of that kinetic energy from the gases to actually excite the thermometer and the air around the thermometer and transfer any heat in that fashion. So it kind of brings up the question of even what temperature is and how we measure it and what that's actually reflecting. But that's maybe a bit of a more philosophical question. But still, the point is taken that throughout the atmosphere you have different layers and you have different temperatures at different layers. So what are we talking about? Well, obviously, since we're human beings and we're concerned primarily with human beings and what's happening to us and the wildlife around us, let's take a look at the 75% or so of the atmosphere by volume that's in the troposphere, that first 11 to 13 kilometers of the atmosphere. And it's down here that all the relevant weather patterns form. This is really the place where we're looking at, or we're concerned about primarily. And people from previous video might remember the troposphere is where we would expect to see the fingerprint of global warming, the hot spot where we would expect to see the warming being trapped, and of course the greenhouse gases collecting in the above the troposphere, in the stratosphere. But again, even if you're just looking at that 11 to 13 kilometers next to the surface of the Earth, that thin slice of air that really keeps us alive here on this blue marble, well, what are we talking about with that 11 to 13 kilometers? So where exactly are we measuring the surface air temperature? If you think I'm being facetious about this, I'm not. One of the keepers of one of the standard data temperature records for surface air temperature, Goddard Institute for Space Studies, has this handy-dandy fact where they talk about the elusive absolute surface air temperature. And under what exactly do we mean by surface air temperature? They themselves say, I doubt that there is a general agreement about how to answer this question. Even at the same location, the temperature near the ground may be very different from the temperature 5 feet above the ground, and different again from 10 feet or 50 feet above the ground, particularly in the presence of vegetation, say in a rainforest. The temperature above the vegetation may be very different from the temperature below the top of the vegetation. A reasonable suggestion might be to use the average temperature of the first 50 feet of air, either above ground or above the top of the vegetation. To measure surface air temperature, we have to agree on what it is, and as far as I know, no such standard has been suggested or generally adopted. Even if the 50-foot standard was adopted, I can't imagine that a weather station would build a 50-foot stack of thermometers to be able to find the true surface air temperature at its location. So again, even the people who keep the surface air temperature record are admitting that this is, it has to be an artificial construction in some way. And well, do you think that they can just take raw temperature data from thermometers and put it in? Well, what thermometers located where, in what way, and how do you weight them given the gaps in the station records and things of this nature? It is a lot more complicated than you might think at first glance. And in fact, it's even more complicated when you start getting into the actual ways that they do try to calculate a global average temperature. Something that, well, as Canadians might know, of course, this is David Suzuki, broadcaster and emeritus professor, who is hailed by most Canadians as a wonderful genius of science and a proselytizer for science, and someone who, of course, believes wholeheartedly 100% in catastrophic anthropogenic global warming. And he was well surprised by a question on the Australian Q&A program a couple of years ago.
So where are you getting your information? I'm not a climatologist. I wait for the climatologists to tell us what they're thinking.
Well, you want to respond to that, Bill?
Sure, yeah. UAH RSS had GIS data shows a 17-year flat trend, which suggests there may be something wrong with the CO2 warming theory.
Yeah. What is the reference? I don't...
Well, they're the main data sets that IPCC use. UAH, University of Alabama, Huntsville, GISS, Goddard Institute of Space Science, HADCRUT, I don't know what that stands for, HADCRUT, and RSS, Remote Sensing Something. So those data sets suggest a 17-year flat trend, which suggests there may be a problem with the CO2.
There may be a climate skeptic down in Huntsville, Alabama, who has taken the data and come to that conclusion. I say let's wait for the IPCC report to come out and see what the vast bulk of scientists who've been involved in gathering this information will tell us. I'm not, we can cherry pick all kinds of stuff. Cherry pick, in fact, the scientists that we want to listen to. But let's listen to the IPCC.
Indeed, the ignorance on display here is quite phenomenal. And look, I don't mind at all for most people on the planet not to have any clue what UAH or GISS or RSS or any of these ridiculous acronyms are, what they mean, let alone how they're calculated or what implications they have for things like global average temperature calculations. But for someone who literally believes that people who ignore climate science should be put in jail, the level of ignorance on display here is quite phenomenal. So, well, let's roll up our sleeves and hopefully roll back some of that ridiculous amount of ignorance. And I'll direct you to an excellent website, climateforyou.com, that has extensive data and information on all sorts of different things to do with climate, air temperatures, global temperature, oceans, polar temperature, polar precipitation. Lots and lots and lots of data presented in a very, very neutral way for people who believe in global warming or disbelieve in it. This is just reams of data, and also context for what that data is, where it comes from, how it's interpreted. An excellent website that I suggest that you check out if you're interested in these things. Under global temperature, they talk about the different data sets that exist, and they say all temperature diagrams shown below have 1979 as starting year. This roughly marks the beginning of the recent period of global warming. In addition, the year 1979 also represents the starting date for the satellite-based global temperature estimates, UAH and RSS. For the three surface air temperature estimates shown, HADCRUT, NCDC, and GISS, the reference period differs. HADCRUT refers to the official normal WMO period, 1961 to 1990, while NCDC and GISS as a reference instead use 1901 to 2000 and 1951 to 1980, respectively, which results in higher positive temperature anomalies. Okay, again, there's a lot of stuff to go through here. For example, the fact that, as we say, it's very, very difficult to come up with a global average temperature, a number that somehow reflects the average temperature of the planet. So when in these types of temperature charts, you will always see them presented as temperature anomalies, i.e. the difference between the current temperature and a given period, 1901 to 2000 or 1951 to 1980. So they're trying to look for temperature anomalies more so than they are an actual global average temperature. And these are the types of records that they're looking at. UAH, RSS, HADCRUT, NCDC, and GISS. UAH and RSS are satellite temperature records. HADCRUT, NCDC, and GISS are surface air temperature estimates. This is important because there are different quality levels of different temperature data sets. Quality Class 1, the satellite records, UAH and RSS, are Quality Class 1 because satellite temperatures are generally more reliable than surface air temperature estimates. They are they're more. They have a higher sampling rate. Usually, satellite records will sample the entire surface of the Earth every twice a day or something on that order. So they're very extensive, very reliable temperature records. Whereas HADCRUT, NCDC, and GISS are surface temperature records that are less reliable. For example, Quality Class 2 is the HADCRUT surface record, Quality Class 3 is NCDC and GISS, because NCDC and GISS often experience quite large administrative changes, a concept we'll come back to later, and therefore essentially must be considered unstable records. Changes are introduced to HADCRUT, but they're fewer and smaller. And then there's talking about the sea surface temperature record that factors into this. So again, a lot of stuff to go through, but the upshot of this is that when you compare the satellite record, the Quality Class 1, to the HADCRUT and the GISS and NCDC, the Quality Class 2 and 3, the surface air temperature estimates, you find that there is an appreciable difference in temperature anomalies. In this period, 1979 to 2008, the satellite record found a temperature anomaly of 0.45 or 0.37 degrees Celsius, whereas the less reliable HADCRIT found a 0.55 degrees Celsius temperature anomaly, and GISSN and CDC found 0.64 and 0.58 degrees Celsius temperature anomaly, respectively. That means, essentially, that the satellite record is diverging from the surface air temperature estimate record, and the satellite record is showing less warming than the less reliable surface air temperature record.
Desertphile. Oh, I'm sorry, Desertphile. Please continue.
No, United States is not giving countries billions of dollars to mitigate against and adapt to human-caused climate change. It damn well should be, but it is not. Only a few $1 million, unfortunately, every year is being given by the United States to countries that have not caused the problem. The United States is one of the 3 top contributors to human-caused climate change. We therefore owe it to the rest of the planet to help them fight and mitigate against climate change. We're not doing that. And I'm sorry, I'm all choked up here. That was George Bush trying to do that. If President Obama wanted to destroy the United States economy, why has it been improving steadily for the past 7 years? Talk about the worst villain ever. Everything he's been doing to destroy the economy has been improving it. It's another thing. President Obama has fucked up trying to destroy the economy, and it's not working.
He couldn't tell you about the commodities that are crashing, and ultimately everything is a commodity because all manufactured goods are raw materials manufactured into like products. Okay, this guy thinks the economy is going good, is obviously clueless, a retard, and a complete, total, utter idiot. Not only gas prices, commodity prices, copper, lead, zinc, across the board, they're crashing. Because why? The consumer is not consuming. Why? Because Obama has done nothing to zero. Because he's no different than George Bush, you fucking retarded moron. Okay? He is the legacy of George fucking Bush. He's Bush too. He's the black Bush, whatever you want to call the motherfucker. He is no different. His foreign policy is no different. He's expanded killing people, innocent civilians. You know, this bomb a wedding, this bomb a hospital, this bomb a U.S. civilian and kill them without even trying to attempt to apprehend them and take them into custody and try them on crimes, because the person he killed is guilty of nothing but speaking out against the United States. This Desertphile, this dork shit fuckwad, doesn't know fucking jack shit, is a fucking stupid Democrat, and he's a jackass. That's their fucking symbol. It's no fucking coincidence that their symbol is a jackass, okay? So global warming is no different than his take on the economy. And if you want to really look into global warming, you need to go on YouTube. You need to type in the CFR. They have a YouTube channel, and guess what's on there? Just have a discussion about global warming. Guess what? If you're with the CFR, you're with Hillary Clinton, you're with the Bushes, and you're with this fucking jackass. End of story.